Welcome to The Blueprint, where science meets spirituality meets self-love. The Blueprint is a journey of self-discovery intended to reconnect you to yourself and remind you that all the answers you seek, you hold within. I'm Marley Finnegan, creator of The Blueprint, a self-exploration based in unique perspectives and conversations around energy, empathy, and the body, mind, and soul. We hope this work inspires healing within our inner landscapes, which in turn reconnects us to healing our communities and Mother Earth. Join us for this exploration as we remember, recognize, and recall the myriad ways you can return to you. Welcome to The Blueprint, Part 5, Return to Your Soul and Spirit. So, the way of our souls and really connecting with our truth requires discernment. And as obviously mentioned in part 1 and throughout the blueprint, everything is energy, and thoughts, words, and emotions are included in that. I have had scenarios where my own inner voice, it sounds like me, it's in my head, shows up, and it's not me. I know that it's not my truth. It's not my soul self. It's not my intuition. It could be old programming. It could be old limiting beliefs. But I also believe it can be energies that are not our own trying to influence us. The unseen world is a vast territory and oftentimes is villainized as something unstable and unpredictable / that there's something mentally disconnected there, because the Western world wants to believe that only scientific knowledge, which can be seen by our human eyes, is valid. I personally have experienced situations in which the inner voice is calm, but anxiety and fear have this energy of chaos or frantic nature. Scarcity. These can be from old beliefs, or they can be something that is just impeding into your energetic field. I have some very specific stories around this. They're sensitive stories. One in which I was walking down the street and I heard, "It'd be a lot easier if you weren't here." It was at a time in my life where I was going through a lot of life changes, but it was not my truth nor what I actually felt was my belief. It wasn't where I was at. And I recognize that as an energy trying to influence me to bring me to a place that I have been before, but that I refuse to acknowledge. Another scenario, this is about a dear person to me who has extremely high level of consciousness and thoughtfulness and kindness. When I first met this person, I had a vision of them in my apartment hitting me. And it was right before the second time I was supposed to meet this person. So I did not know them at all. I trust my intuition very deeply. And so this was one of the first times I had really taken a pause and said, like, is this real? Like, out of complete observation and curiosity. And it didn't feel real. So I decided, we were meeting in a public place, very safe. I very truthfully did not feel that this person's energy was aligned with anything like that. And so I ended up meeting with them, and they ended up sharing with me a story out of respect, a very personal story, but essentially that very much proved that they would never, ever do something like that. And frankly, are advocates against violence due to their own lived experience. It was a direct proof in a very quick turnaround that that vision was not at all intuition. Recognizing these differences and really observing ourselves with curiosity and discernment being the key word, around the energy of the message we receive, both within our bodies, how does it feel to us, as well as sort of the cadence. Is there chaos in the idea, in the emotion, in the message? Energy is creative, and there are a lot of energies out there outside of us that very much want to sort of affect the way that things go within our personal energetic fields and within the greater energetic collective. A soul has a high level of frequency. I believe, based on a lot of things that I've read and just my own inner knowing, I believe that our souls, what powers our body, is a portion of our soul. Our grander soul, the main hub of our energy is in the cosmos, and we're like a piece of ourselves down here on Earth. Our bodies and Earth in this 3D reality can hold a certain level of frequency and essentially a certain amount of our soul's energy. And as we sort of evolve, as we continue to raise our frequency, raise our consciousness, there's a saying about we are spiritual beings having a human experience. As we continue to work on ourselves, like relearning and remembering the infinite nature of our beingness, we continue to increase our own ability to hold frequency. And I personally believe we meet people in our frequency. We meet and connect with people that are in like frequencies. And sometimes that's why and how we go through life and sort of have seasons of people within our lives, or where you might be around people and they're gossiping, or not to judge. Like for me, and I know for a lot of people, all of a sudden you just don't want to be involved in that action and that conversation. So then it becomes like uncomfortable, and then it becomes like, okay, well, I don't really like the way I feel in that energy, and it's a frequency difference. Our highest self refers to our soul's highest consciousness. And I am consciousness is this really divine high level that is sort of really the definition of I am all things. Like I am human. I am soil. I am water. I am fire. I am a tree. I am beauty. I am love. It is consciousness of all things. I also believe we experience our soul. We can experience a lot of different energies during the dream state and the sleep state. And I know I've talked a lot about soul consciousness and subconsciousness, subconscious altering by way of guided meditation while we're slipping into sleep state. I also believe there's a hive consciousness, a divine knowledge pool available to all humans that we all can access and we can seek if we believe that we're able. Really, belief is everything. I have had some incredibly wild dreams, and I feel like most people do, and you might not be able to like hold on to it, where you just grasp these insane, wild pieces of absolute wisdom and knowledge in your dream state. And it's like, can you bring it back to the 3D reality? Hive consciousness refers to the concept that there is this infinite pool of wisdom available where all minds share an element of awareness that essentially we can all tap into. I believe when people are channeling and when we're journaling, I mean, I often ask my highest self, like, what do I need to know? And sometimes the wisdom that pours through my pen onto my journal is astonishing to me for what I need to know in that moment. And obviously, that's why I'm here. There's this concept of Earth School. In a later podcast, I go deep into this concept of life before birth. So, like the life in our divine sort of in between state where we are just soul, high level consciousness prior to returning to Earth or coming to Earth. Dolores Cannon is this amazing past life regressionist. She has this book, Between Life and Death. I wanted to read this little excerpt because what she postures and what a lot of past life regressionists posture from like thousands and thousands of people who they've interviewed is that really what we come here to do on Earth is to learn lessons, to evolve our consciousness at a high level. Obviously, we're evolving our consciousness as humans, but this goes into the pool of knowledge of our divine highest self. This is a channeling from one of the people that Dolores interviewed, which I think is really profound. We speak to those who feel that there should be more to life than what they have experienced. You desire more, yet you seem not to find the door to go through to experience it. Your door is your own mind, simply, nothing more. The ultimate goal is to know yourself. You are offered many lessons which will challenge you to know yourself. Oftentimes, these will be painful. We ask you to examine the rose and see that in such beauty there was always some element of hurt. For a human to truly enjoy the rose, it must be plucked from the stalk, and so there is the danger of sticking one's finger on the rose thorns. However, in times of distress and urgency, we ask that you always remember that your experiences are given to you by yourself. You yourself choose that which is to be experienced so that you may learn the lessons in which you need. Thus, through these painful experiences, you will indeed begin to know yourself. You are truly the master of your own fate and destiny. You yourself are in complete control of what you call your lifetime. You are the one who is making decisions as to when and where and how. We see all the options spread out before you, but it is you who makes the final decision. And this goes to a lot of these past life regression learnings, essentially saying before we come into our newborn bodies, that we review life. We review the body, we review the whole thing, and essentially affirm that this is my choice. Dr. David Hawkins studied human consciousness for over 29 years. And from his research, he created a scale of consciousness as a way to understand various paradigms of experience relative to our emotional states. So he consulted with the National Institute of Education, the National Science Foundation, and in 1981, he received a $300,000 Genius Grant from the MacArthur Foundation. What he found was that people who achieved higher levels of consciousness were able to affect much higher levels of energetic frequency and therefore affect others' consciousness by way of the raising of their own energetic vibration. So essentially, by way of us raising our consciousness by proxy, we raise consciousness of others just due to our frequency. When he used this scale in practice, he found that consistent thoughts, feelings, situations, and relationships of our human lived experience associated with various scales were continually patterning, and it was consistent patterns of emotions, paradigms, and worldviews that emerged from this work. Basically, our energetic calibration is relative to the context of our own existence. It's how two people can be in the exact same experience, in the same room, with the same, watching the same thing, witnessing the same thing, receiving the same thing, and interpret it totally differently. I've experienced this recently in my own life, but with different versions of myself. Being in scenarios and seeing things where I normally would be like, oh, wow, this is depressing to me, or this is sad, or this makes me feel bad about myself. But noticing now that I'm experiencing awe and joy and essentially just a higher experience in these same scenarios and moments. Someone who lives in fear corresponds with victimhood or things happening to you. That's like a level of consciousness that he identified. Alternatively, someone living in acceptance experiences life as happening through them. So with awe, transcendence, and appreciation of all things, observation, seeing synchronicities, and also engaging with the experience. So engaging with energy, engaging with spirit in ways that affirm exactly what you see. So for example, loved ones of mine or anyone that has passed, you can say something like, what is our spirit symbol? Like, how do we communicate? I mean, I asked that of my grandpa and heard immediately, literally before I could even finish the sentence in my mind, frog. Anyway, I love a frog. And it's funny because I loved frogs when I was a kid. It's like timeless, this experience. Like, I'm like, wow, did I love frogs then because I knew I would love frogs now? It's an interesting concept to explore. Anyway, recently I was told that the wag of a dog's tail is at a very high level of consciousness because it's essentially unconditional love. And I know people out there would be like, well, they don't have high consciousness. And it's also like, but how do you know? When was the last time you were a dog? I feel that deeply. The look in a dog's eyes when you get home and the way that they wag their tail and literally are so excited. It is divine, unconditional love. It's beautiful. So I love that concept. Other ways that we can connect to our soul self are our flow states. So, what are the things that you do which you lose track of time? What brings you play and joy? And these are the states in which support channeling that authentic version of ourselves and really support us reconnecting and continue to strengthen that sort of soul connection continually. Obviously, meditation is huge to do this, but some everyday flow states to be aware of are things like working out, driving, cleaning, painting, writing, dancing, listening to music, showering, even bathing, taking a bath. Anytime you can get in water is a really great way to energetically cleanse yourself. I also want to introduce the concept of soul support. We have an entire unseen team of supporters that have our backs from our ancestors. And I always like to say those in service to the highest good of all and my highest good, essentially our ancestors. We have guides, angels, ascended masters. We also have astrology, human design, gene keys, all these sort of maps, treasure maps to our soul's path and what our soul signed us up for. What I don't want to other our soul. Our soul is us. Like our soul is our heart. It is our body. It is us. We are our soul. So it's not a separate entity in which you need to appeal to. It is the divine part of you that lights your life. There's ways, we can identify communication and develop communication with the spirit team through meditating on different symbols. Like, what are your spirit symbols? What are the numbers in which you can communicate? What are things in your life, or even just observing synchronicities, things that you keep seeing over and over, which give you some sort of direction and knowing? So I believe everyone is highly intuitive and that we're just sort of told that we're not, or we are programmed to not believe that it to be true. Clairs are essentially clairvoyance is seeing, clairaudience is hearing, claircognizance is knowing, and clairsentience is clear physical feeling. Discerning what is ours and what is not ours. I kept kind of having a lot of synchronicity, and it does come back to the concept of, do our thoughts and our mind create our reality? And that is a whole nother sort of higher level concept to unpack on its own. So like, if we're seeing things and looking for things and thinking of things, are we going to see them? That's a great question. But I think that's where the soul discernment, the intuition has to come in, because I've also had synchronicities sort of guiding me on paths where I don't think it was necessarily in my highest good, but didn't know that at the time, because it was sort of spirit communication, numbers and songs and things that I associated with something really positive, but that positive thing really wasn't any more in service to me in this life. I definitely recommend thinking about and doing past life meditation. I have one available for you in the blueprint. Also, the concept of information deprivation. So this is from The Artist's Way, a beautiful book, which is genius. But it's about abstaining from all forms of social media, news, television for 3 days. Like, do not read a thing, be in your own energy. And anytime you have free, I mean, if you can literally not use your phone and not use technology, amazing, but use that time to meditate and dip into any of those flow state activities or whatever ones not mentioned that you love, and just be with yourself, with your soul, and keep a journal handy to reflect on what comes through for you. I'm going to do a silent meditation retreat, a multi-day soon, because I really am seeking this type of an experience. I know there's things needing to come through that I need to make space for. The goal is really noticing without judgment and connecting to your soul. So do not judge yourself for the experience, but try to deprive the outer world from impeding your own sort of inner knowing is the bigger thing. Here are some questions for your blueprint. How does your soul choose to speak to you? What do you know to be your soul's truth? What do you believe your soul is here to learn? And have you identified what activities speak to your soul? What are your flow states? What activities do you participate in which connect you to your soul self? And how can you incorporate more of these into your life? Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we're so grateful that you're here as part of our community. More to come from us on theblueprintwithin.com, and we look forward to opening up our Blueprint community this fall. Look for some communications and sign up to be a part of the journey at theblueprintwithin.com. Thank you for choosing yourself. The work to return to yourself is some of the hardest work you can do. We believe everyone is intuitive, creative, and always connected to their own divine highest power. When we invest in ourselves and our consciousness, we are raising the frequency of humanity. What we do in the highest good of our souls, we do for the highest good of all. We've designed experiences for you to continue in your exploration of these topics, which are on a pay-what-you-can basis. Find customized meditations, journal prompts, rituals, and abundant resources at the link in our bio or theblueprintwithin.com.